Hello and welcome to IBTimes TV. I'm Leanna Brindon, news editor for the International Business Times. Joining me now is Sebastian Woolf. He's the CEO of Woolf Sung. So hi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi.
So we're going to be talking about fine wine. So the sector has been kind of the darling of alternative investments actually for the past 5 years. In terms of the returns promised to investors or pledged to investors, how has that fared against forecasts?
It just depends on the region, really. I think if you take sort of traditional Bordeaux, I think in some instances there have been sort of slight downturns in that area. But if you take other areas, for example, Burgundy, Champagne, and to a certain extent Italian wines, we've seen some, great increases.
For people out there who haven't invested before and are looking into it, what are the kind of periods in terms of people should hold on to fine wines? Because obviously with every different sector, there's some returns over 6 months, some are over 10 years.
Sure. I would certainly say that this is sort of a medium to long-term hold, anywhere from 3 to 10 plus years. I think the sort of reasoning behind that is that it works on a supply basis. So what you want to sort of try and look at is that over the course of say 10 years, the theory is people are consuming the product. Therefore, there are less of them available, in 10 years, and you have a product that's worth more, I think, provided the demand's still there, of course.
And are there any certain vintages or other types of wine that you really see as maybe some standout investments over the medium or long term?
I certainly think if looking at Bordeaux now, because of the slight correction, I think, in values, I think there's some older Bordeaux, so from the sort of 80s, I think certainly 40s and 50s as well, interestingly, are actually doing really, really well at the moment. And if you take Champagne, a lot of vintage Champagne, so from the 60s, 70s and 80s at the moment, again, it's highly sought after. There's a lot of drinkers out there drinking them, and therefore we know that the supply levels are diminishing. So, in theory, over the course of, 3-5 years, value should increase, yeah.
The other part of the growth story of the industry has actually been regionally. So China has been a large part of that growth over the past 5 years. Is that still the case now in 2015?
I certainly think that there was a slight drop-off, I think, with the Chinese in terms of their buying purely as an investment. I think now the culture there is evolving to the degree where they're now sort of creating their own wines. I think they're educating themselves a lot more, which is great news for us because it means actually the quality of the products that we can offer there are much, much higher. It's not just about brands anymore, it's also about the quality of the product, which is great. But I certainly have seen, in the early part of this year towards the latter part of last year, a marked increase. And as we're coming up to the Chinese New Year, we've actually seen a lot of demand for certain Bordeaux. One example is Mouton Rothschild, the 2000 vintage. It's got a ram on the label, which of course it's the year of the ram or sheep, and of course that association really has sort of pushed up prices in the demand. So it's all very good.
And are there any geographically any other areas that are helping that growth story as well, other than China? We've
seen a little bit move towards India, although India has got now, it's very difficult with their import taxes on these products. They're very, very high, so it's very, very slow there. We have seen a little bit. The US, we've seen a marked increase in the US. They're taking a lot of old Bordeaux, a lot of old Italian wine, and they're very, very keen on those. A lot of collectors out there really wanting, as long as the provenance, i.e., where the wine has come from, is perfect, and we can prove that through, auction receipts, photography, those sorts of things, then yeah, they're absolutely fine, yeah. So we've seen an increase there.
Picking up on the US, because at the moment they're still talking about this transatlantic trade partnership, which should actually help streamline, I suppose, regulation when you're exporting to the States. Do you see that affecting the fine wine industry in any way in terms of demand?
No, not really. I think there's always going to be, because it's a product that people are always sort of keen on buying for drinking, but also collecting. I think people will always go ahead and start buying it or continue buying it. Yeah.
The other part of the industry, there has been over the last couple of years some bad press over some outfits that have either gone bust or have actually been scams. Have you seen that having a dent on the reputation of the industry, and how do investors safeguard themselves from finding the right outfit for them for investing?
It's been difficult. As a company, you're always constantly battling really for business, generally speaking. And when you've got things that are sort of affecting things from the outside, it does affect it. Woolf Sung, we are a business really trying to reshape, the sort of merchant world. And as a new merchant, we're sort of out there trying to, help that. I think, you know, as individuals, you should be certainly aware of what is going on within the industry. You certainly should approach individuals that know what they're talking about within the wine. It's not just about the investment and how much it can make. It's making sure that you, for example, as a private client, that you have your own storage account and facilities. It's not under an umbrella, for argument's sake, of the business that you're working for. Because of course, if the business does go pear-shaped, then, you know, you lose your investment or it gets tied into, you know, a horrible liquidation situation which you don't want to be involved with. So, you know, there are those elements, and also making sure that the pricing and how you go about buying is right. You know, you want to make sure that the provenance of the wines are correct, and you want to make sure that it's delivered, you know, to you on time.
And looking into the future for you guys, have you got any milestones coming up or an area that you're looking to expand in?
Well, yeah, we are increasing our trade. Woolf Sung are increasing our trade into the Hong Kong market, which is excellent. You know, we've got a lot of private clients that consume, and also merchants out there, trade merchants that we deal with, which is excellent. So we're increasing that quite considerably. Certainly areas in the US as well, New York and California, we're certainly seeing a lot of uptake for, as I've told you, sort of older vintages, older Bordeaux, which is great. So we're sort of now becoming quite global. For one of the smaller UK merchants, we're actually becoming more global, which is excellent, because it means we can, you know, play using exchange rates and those bits and pieces. We can sort of take advantage of those changes. So yeah, it's exciting.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
And that was Sebastian Woolf, CEO of Woolf Sung.